Every week, our team serves communities across Alberta. Join speech and occupational therapists Robyn and Kris as they share stories on the road and highlight the importance of therapy in clients' natural environments. Stay tuned. It's time for Key Talks.
Okay, rural practice.
We are Key Creative, and this is Key Talks. Yeah.
Giggly gals this morning
Very
or this afternoon. It doesn't matter.
freshly caffeinated gals for this episode. But welcome to Key Talks. And if this is your first episode or your more than first episode, thank you so much for choosing us today for your ears and your eyeballs, because we are on video and audio. Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, we'll be there. My name is Deanna, and across the table from me is Paula.
We'll be there. That's only 5
Under
seconds.
15 seconds.
Yes.
I'll be there.
And Mike, of course.
And
keeping an
there's
eye.
me on the
And
tech.
if you have never heard of us before, we are based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We are a pediatric rehab agency for young people of all ages and all abilities. And when I say all abilities, I really mean we have all sorts of different backgrounds, diagnoses, developmental disorders, family circumstances that we are so open and ready to work with. If you're interested in our services, please go to our website, keycreative.com. That's QICreative.com, and fill out an intake form, and we'll take it from there. Now, for this episode I'm hoping is a very informative one about where we practice, because our office is here in Edmonton, but we go way beyond that. And I feel like I surprise new clients every time where I say, like, yeah, you don't have to live in Edmonton for us to see you. And so to carry on that conversation, we've got two of our great therapists with us today, Robyn and Kris.
Come on out. So Robyn is a SLP on our team, a speech language pathologist,
Yes.
and Kris is an occupational therapist on the team. And Robyn's actually been with us for 9 years.
9
Wow.
years.
Yes. And Kris is moving on to 2 years, cruising in her twos.
2 years. Terrible twos.
Terrible twos.
So we'll really get a good idea of what rural practice is. I have such a hard time with that word.
Rural, yeah.
Anyway, hopefully I don't have to say it that many times, but you'll get a good spectrum of experience with rural practice. But maybe before we jump into the questions, I just want to say that Key Creative started off as a rural practice. In 2006, 2007, I'm sure John will correct me once he hears this, but one of those 2 years, John was asked to see some clients in rural communities because there was very, very, very limited people going out there. And the people who were going out there were coming from places that were actually out of country. So there was very limited access to services and specifically local services. So John had started to see a few clients in the rural communities, and now let's fast forward to 2009, our practice really grew. And at that point, we employed several clinicians on our team, and we were a rural practice completely. We didn't have any Edmonton-based clients at that point. So Edmonton clientele is fairly new in a way. It's probably new in the scope of how long we've been a practice now. So we've been practicing as Key Creative for over 15 years, and it's probably in the last 5 to 7 years that our Edmonton based clients have really grown, but we still are primarily a rural practice. So when we hire clinicians, we say, are you going to enjoy traveling? And do you know what that we say that, do you enjoy traveling? Is that something you're willing to do? And are you going to be okay with that? And then we have to, I find, and we didn't always do this, and Robyn, you'll have to tell me if we did, but we've had to become more and more clear just to make sure it's the right fit for the coach, because coaches are traveling up to sometimes 6 hours a day, if not a little bit more, give or take. So travel is a big part of this position. So maybe could I start with this question? The question that's coming to my mind is that when we hired you, or when we even first interviewed you, do you remember that conversation about travel? And
Oh, I definitely do.
Okay, tell.
I definitely, because I remember that I was like, oh yeah, I have podcasts, I do audiobooks, and I remember how relieved you guys looked.
Thank God.
Yeah. No, I remember it absolutely. You were like, so you're comfortable with this? You like to drive.
Yeah.
I think even at that time we didn't do as much carpooling.
No.
It wasn't as common. Now we carpool a lot, which is kind of the fun about why we wanted to do this.
Yeah.
This actual particular podcast, because we've talked about it a lot of how much fun it is to actually kind of like have these partnerships in driving.
Yeah.
But yeah, early years, we were really just like stocking up on audiobooks. And like, I mean,
before like audiobooks and podcasts were like really a thing too. Like that was what made driving like enjoyable,
you could go
right?
into the library and get like the disc library of like there's 16 discs that you're just changing out because you're like getting a epic long novel. Yeah, I remember it absolutely.
Awesome.
But I remember the look of you guys being like,
because it is a very unique part of the position for sure, and it's a big part of the position.
Yeah,
where like a big part of your productivity, like your working time, is travel. And if you're not okay going out to these communities that, well, where do we travel? Where do you travel, for example? What are some of the places we go to?
Lac La Biche, St. Paul, Elk Point.
Yeah, you know what's actually interesting is that in like over time, there are clusters of locations.
Yeah.
And I think that naturally happens because, we have a great caseload coordinator who tries to keep us kind of in regions so that we aren't actually just ricocheting around, going north, south, east, west all the time.
I remember like when I did my practicum at Key when I was still an undergrad, I went out to like Hinton and Edson and
that's what I was
Jasper.
going to say is we did so much travel west.
Yes.
But that doesn't,
and now
it's not
we're
really
east.
a part of our...
Yeah,
Well,
and then I had north for a
Yeah.
long time, and now we're
northeast primarily now and central.
in central.
And that has to do with, so one of our largest funders is FSCD, Family Support for Children with Disabilities. And they basically divide themselves into regions throughout the province. And the region division has changed. So we have serviced different regions within Alberta. And through some of their changes of regions, we've either stopped or started working. So yes, northwest area where you had Whitecourt, Hinton, and Edson was where we first started.
Yeah, and
our
some of my
rural
very
practice.
first clients were in Jasper.
And in Jasper.
Like driving through the mountain passes,
yes,
like I remember some big drives, like beautiful, like changes in the weather, and you're thinking like, this is incredible. You're driving out here, go pop in, see some families, or we were doing some puff services out in that area too for some of those early intervention sites. That is, and that's another one of the like awesome things about driving and traveling around is just like some of the beautiful roads we're on.
Yeah. Places you wouldn't usually go.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that for sure. I want to know when your interview hiring process and learning about the travel component. What was that like for you?
I knew that there was a lot of travel before I applied, just from doing my practicum, and because Ashley, another OT, had started and had chatted with her about it. But I was not a confident highway driver at that time. I was like hesitant about highway driving. But knew that that was a big part of it and have like learned that I really enjoy it. Yeah. It's become, like Robyn was saying, when you carpool, that's really enjoyable, just chatting with someone and hanging out.
Yeah.
But also the times when I'm alone and you just get that, like, it's not often in your work that you get like quiet time. You know, if you worked in other places, it's kind of just like busy, rush around, go, go, go. So it's nice to just like, listen to a podcast.
or just like,
Yeah. I like get to be current on what music I'm listening to because I like actually have time to be like, hey, that artist has a new album coming out. I'm driving.
And that's your working time, which is one of the beautiful parts about the position. I think like as we've now had this experience, and you, Robyn, for 9 years, and I mean, John was out on that road every day, you know, at the beginning of this practice. And I mean, I wasn't a driver either. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how does he do it? But now that I've experienced it, but it used to be like, we used to think like, oh my gosh, this is daunting. Like, this is scary. Like, are people going to want to do this? To now coming to this point that it's probably one of the favorite parts of the position.
To be honest, when it is maybe like a 45-minute or an hour-long drive to see a client, I feel a little bit ripped off of the like.
It's like not enough
because it's a little bit of your personal time in the day that you.
Yeah.
It's like you get completely uninterrupted solo time, and if you're a parent or you're just like, I mean, living a life as anybody is where you're like
busy, hectic. Yeah.
Doing things for other people. This is absolute siloed time for yourself that you can, if you want to like listen to the album that you've been waiting to listen to.
That's right.
It's your time.
And like keeping up with like the newest, coolest podcasts like He Talks.
Plug.
Yeah, that's what I'm always listening to while I drive.
Right? Along with everyone else listening.
I actually the other day was so into my audiobook that I took a wrong turn and was a little late for a visit because I was like just so immersed in what I was listening to. And then I was like, this is the wrong way.
Oh yeah, I spent a whole winter actually going through all the Harry Potters and would pull up to the school in the morning and it would be like, drag myself out of that world, go sign in at the school and just be like, oh, but Harry was in the most like tumultuous situation. But now you're like, snap to reality.
You get into the zone, you're able to flow. But yeah, like it can be hard to keep up with all that content, but this really gives you an opportunity to do that, right? Like to keep up with, you know, whether it's the reading or listening or podcasts, audiobooks. Okay, and then we talked about like the joint driving. So you're spending like hours and hours of like pretty intimate time on the road with your colleagues, which in some ways can feel like uncomfortable. And tell us about that, and not uncomfortable, completely joyful.
Well, there is sort of like a spread of people. Like some people like to carpool. There's no like pressure to carpool, obviously. Some people are just like, yeah, if I can carpool, I'm going to do it. That's me. Yeah. I'm just like, if I can get a bit of social, that fills my cup. Cool. It feels like the driving, it's nice to be alone, but it can also be a bit lonely if you're doing it day after day after day. So for me, I really like to be with other people. I know there's other people who just enjoy that solo time. So it's like, you know, you don't have to carpool, but it's really nice. And when Robyn and I carpool, there's often one of us that's like, my kid was up all night last night. Would you mind driving today? We kind of like are able to take
Support
turns.
each other,
or even like you drive the first half and I'll drive the second half, you know, if you're comfortable doing that. But we just have so much fun together, Robyn and I.
It just like feels like there are people that you, because we are going to those different kind of locations and grouping people to clients within similar areas, you end up being partnered with similar people like in those same waves as you've moved through different like geographical locations. And then you end up kind of feeling like you have a roommate a little bit, right? Like you share conversations, meals, things like
Mm-hmm.
that you would share if you were just like sitting on a couch with your roommate at home.
Mm-hmm.
which is like, I think, awesome in a social sense, but also like just as teammates,
As colleagues.
as
yeah.
colleagues, like when we get to a client's house,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we really know each other to a level of like, oh, I know exactly what Robyn's thinking about when the parent says this. And then we can
Yeah.
like, you know, I think
Yeah.
in a lot of ways it enhances
Yeah.
I
the
love
work we can
that.
do.
Yeah.
It's like I love how you said that. I mean, in a way, I understood that, but just how you explained that makes me understand it or feel it on such another level. Is like we really know the person in a way that we want to support them and are there to support them and understand what they're going through. And so if we need to step up or step down or like give
Oh,
energy
yeah.
or take, like you're more attuned
And there are
to that.
so many days when you're doing way more of the parent coaching and I'm off playing or we like or
vice
switch,
versa.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it probably does, although I've never really like analyzed it, it probably does align with some of those days where you're like,
Yeah.
I got a crazy migraine, my kid
Yeah.
was up all night, or like whatever it is that we just like fall into
Mhm.
place.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
We also just like get the opportunity to like stop at hilarious roadside diners and
Yeah.
try out random bathrooms along the way.
Oh, yeah. And you're very, very aware on the route where the good bathrooms are. Like, where's the primo rest stop?
Yes.
Where's the one you want to stop at? Does this road even have a place to stop?
Yeah.
Are we doing like the pee-pee dance
Yeah.
as we like pull into town where you're just like, hi,
Wiggle, wiggle,
hi client, bathroom right now. And then we will talk.
A lot of them know when we get there, it's like, give us the first 5 minutes. We have to pee. We drank a lot of coffee on the way down.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like,
gotta go.
we're getting
gotta
in
go.
there right away. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like more than, you know, we're not talking about work the entire time we drive.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
get that social piece and
Yeah.
we think it's so fun. Like we went into the thrift store in St. Paul one day and just had the best time because we had a little bit of time to kill.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't get that kind of thing if you're like working in an office.
Well, you're not generally, generally speaking, people aren't driving around Alberta getting to know these small towns and experiencing, you know, the uniqueness of them. And so we get that opportunity to go to these places and like find the neat thrift shop or enjoy the coffee shop or like find the best toilet that's along the route. Like we wouldn't, or it's like the sausage, the Mundair sauce. Right? Like,
Canada's
there's all
big as
this-
this, Canada's big as that. I
classic
have
Monday
a
sausage.
picture with almost every single. I have one with the egg, with the sausage.
Okay,
with
where's
the
the egg
pierogi.
from? Where's the egg?
The
Let's-
egg's in Vegreville.
Okay, Vegreville. We traveled to Vegreville.
The pierogi is in Glendon.
Glendon.
The sausage is in Mundair.
Yeah.
The duck is in Andrew.
We need to do the UFO landing pad in
The
St. Paul.
Yeah, we
We
drive
haven't-
past it all the
yeah,
time,
we
but we
did-
haven't,
we haven't
ventured
stopped.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's like many, is there many more? Like I know that we have chats about like different places that people have stopped. You've mentioned quite a few, but it's neat stops that we wouldn't usually see. Like if you weren't in this
no.
type of work, right?
Oh, Vilna has the mushrooms. I haven't been there yet either.
Okay.
Yeah. But I know them all.
So basically, if Travel Alberta needs more associates, they should reach out to us.
Probably.
'cause we get it everywhere.
We do have a shared document.
Yeah.
It was made years ago of all the best coffee shops
Yes.
in all the little communities and places that you can stop and get lunch. And that's something too that's like another perk of just being in all the little communities around is you get to see what they've put into their community. Those little favorite spots.
Yeah.
There's so many sweet ones. There's so many great places that are like that place has the best soup specials and sandwich. Or, I mean,
You
sometimes
guys just did a gift exchange. What was
Oh,
the?
yeah.
Let's shout it out.
This was Janice's idea to do a gift exchange where all the gifts were purchased at the Pepper's gas station in Wisetna.
Pepper's gas station.
Yeah. And that place is legend because it has so much good baking, which is seems kind of random, but like the cinnamon buns, the pizza twists.
it's why now that little like shelf in my RAV is called the
bakery
the
shelf.
baking shelf, the bakery shelf. Go and buy the things in Wasetna, and then we just store them in the shelf.
But everybody, we set a price limit. Everyone, it also is just filled with random stuff. Like there's all these knickknacks and clothing and toys.
Yeah.
There were some pretty neat things that I saw come out of that.
It was
out
awesome.
of that
It was so
out
good.
of peppers.
It was
So I
great.
just wanted to kind of go off something that we were talking about, and just about like the connection you build as teammates and colleagues, like through traveling together and spending that much time together. And it just makes me think about our key culture and how special our key culture is. And I wonder if you two would, but I think I definitely attribute like that closeness that's been developed through the time that our team is able to spend together and really get to know each other if they so choose to. But I've seen like these relationships build and like how people really know each other, not just on the surface, but on a deeper level. And we've always talked about like how special our culture here as is at Key. And I think that, being able to travel like that is definitely a part of why we have become so close as a team. Wonder what you guys sort of think about that.
Oh yeah, 6 hours together on a road is a great equalizer. There's not much that you like don't share after a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And then your coworkers become like, I mean, we're therapists, but we become each other's therapists. We become like our confidants. There's so much to be said for that kind of like, it is, like I said, it's siloed time. It's not like there's no one overhearing you. You're not in an office where you think like, oh, you lower your voice if you have to like, say something that would be personal. You can just be like, we're in the car. This is me. This is like, there's something unfiltered about that, because that there's no
We need
eavesdrop.
I think we need a reality TV show though, like Key on the Road.
Key carpool, not karaoke, but like
Oh, no, we do karaoke sometimes. Yeah.
I imagine that's a part of it. But like, maybe a Key Talks on the road.
On the road. I think like part of it, we've gotten close in the car because the culture at Key sets you up to feel comfortable to do that. Like I think it works both ways. We've gotten close and that contributes to the culture. But coming into Key, that is something that's valued already, to be more than just like hyper professional colleagues,
We're people first.
We're people first. And so I think you could drive with someone as a colleague and not get to that level, but we know that that's valued. And so it's like, this is a part of this place and this space. So like lean in.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that perspective. And yeah, that's awesome. So we've kind of talked about like the enjoyment factor, or like what's been great or enjoyable about the driving aspect. What is it about the clientele in the rural communities that may be different or unique to rural practice?
Being 15 minutes late is totally fine. Like you get there.
When you've traveled 2.5 hours, they're like the leeway is a little more.
Yeah, there maybe was road construction or weather or whatever it is, but there's a lot of like give and take and grace, kind of like, and I think that we build that on both sides. And so sometimes even a client might not be right there, right on time, but we have each other's phone numbers. We're texting already to check in. We know that like everyone knows we're on our way with our best intentions to get there. And so that idea of like, you're always leaving, with that, like I said, the best intention of like, this is when we're going to get there. And Google Maps has made that so much easier, where you can say with exact precision, like this is the minute that we should arrive. But our clients are always like, oh no, come on in. Like, no worries. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
It's a different level of understanding.
yeah.
I think there's, not that Edmonton clients aren't appreciative, but I think there is that level too of like, how much we've put in before we've even arrived at their house to be there to provide the services. You know, our day starts at 8, but our visit might start at 11, right? So I think there's that understanding that like you guys have really given a lot to come and see us, and I think there's that appreciation factor at times. Yeah, they're not taking it for granted. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's us or no one
Or no
coming out there. So
Yeah.
I think there's that.
Yeah.
There's less sort of like they're owed it or something
Yes.
like that, right?
I think you're right
Yeah.
with expectation. Like there's just a different level of like, there's less expectation of like, it needs to be like this. It
Yeah.
should be like this. I expect this. It's like, there's more grace and
Yeah.
understanding and empathy that we're all human. And like, if you weren't, you're right. Like it's true. If you were not going there, there's not many people who are, right? And so,
Especially in person.
in
Like I think
person.
maybe they might be offered like a virtual service, which is
Yeah.
there's value in that too. But I think to see someone in person in their home playing directly with their kid is really meaningful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I was thinking, I wish this part of us, which is the main part of our practice, was more well known. As I having been on the intake side of it, they'll say, you know, I'm from Bonnyville and I only found out about you guys because my friend was getting services and it was just a word of mouth thing, as opposed to like, and then even not even that far away, it's like even like Spruce Grove or Leduc, I've had questions like, "Oh, is Leduc too far? Are we out of region?" I'm like, "No, you're not.
You're very close.
Do you guys go all the way to Spruce Grove?" Yeah, we do.
And there's people as far out as like I go to Fort McMurray, for example. So, you know, and they don't have the same type of like therapy or access to therapy, even in a place like that that's a little bit larger than some of these smaller areas as well. And I always feel very honored, like to be able to travel out there and provide the service to these people who wouldn't have it otherwise. And feels like just such a gift to me in a way. I know for them, they may feel that, but for me too, that we're able as a practice to do what a lot of practices don't do, and for different reasons, but we get to do that, like go to Fort McMurray or Cold Lake or Lac La Biche. I know we've worked with some pretty big school divisions that are really remote, that haven't received services for long periods of time, that we now have the opportunity to serve. So it's an interesting spectrum of like,
For a lot of those communities, that's something where they're underserved because they're at the complete mercy of who lives in their community, right? Like there might be a service provider, but like, you know, there are people who have different levels of expertise. And when you have a multidisciplinary team like ours, we're able to kind of find something that does fit what they need. And so we're better able to kind of bring those services to them. Whereas like you might have someone who's really awesome in that community, but at the same time, they're limited to like what they work with. And with us, we have a whole team who supports each other and gives that
multidisciplinary team.
Gives that like full spectrum of support.
And I think what also makes it unique is, like you guys are saying, there's a lot more joint visits. So on a visit, it's not just like SLP, you're getting an SLP and an OT and sometimes a PT all at one visit, and separated out in ways like you're spending time with each professional for a period of time. But that is very unique. That's a great point, Mike, whereas some communities might only have an OT, but they need the other two professions as well. But with Key Creative, you know, you get access to multiple.
And learning from each other. I mean, it's been invaluable. It's changed my practice entirely. Having so much connected time with occupational therapists. It's changed the way I think, the way I practice, the way I talk to people, like the way I view behavior. So I'm like eternally grateful for that kind of joint visit collaboration that is really like encouraged, highlighted. And we really actually encourage families to take a couple joint visits. There are some who are like, we really want to keep them separated just for their own like ease and ability to kind of like filter out information, I think, too. But often when we get to go together and see how everything kind of does fit together, families see that there is a flow and how everything does actually kind of like overlap, but also just like weave together.
We did one of our podcast episodes. I don't know if you remember, the number was interdisciplinary practice with Coach Lisa and Coach Emily, which spoke exactly to what you're saying, Robyn, like the benefits like of having two therapists, like an OT and an SLP, for example, working collaboratively together at a visit, because to reach X outcome a lot of times isn't just like one set of skills. You require sort of the mindset of an or not the mindset, but the skill set of an SLP and the OT working together, right? And if you sort of miss one of those elements, you can totally get off track or miss the track that you're supposed to be on.
You kind of get like, I feel like when you have OT and SLP together, you get like a secret third clinician. Do you know what I mean? Like when we come together, you actually get
love that.
more in some ways. Like, just like, I don't know.
There'll be me, there'll be Robyn and I, and the secret
third
clinician.
Because kids are whole people too, right?
Yeah.
They're not just a communicator or like doing self-help. All of those things are always overlapping, because we can't just be like, today we're only working on dressing, but not the communication part of it. Like, it always has to go together. So when you get both of us, I think you get two for the price of three.
And driving together.
No.
3 for the price of 2.
3 for the price of 2.
3 for the price of 2.
That was backwards.
Just be clear on our billing. On our billing, you're not being charged more for less.
Well, and to be honest, I would say you're getting more because where the services are taking place too. Yeah. Because like, even though we're talking about being more recently in the Edmonton area, one of the realities of our practices is it's a lot of going to the place where you're going to have the most impact. Yeah. We're also going to have the most natural experience with the client because of the fact that like their behavior isn't changed because they've come to this place with like a bright, beautiful mural that like might be really overwhelming, might be a new space, might feel really safe, might be something that is needed in certain circumstances. But you're there in the home where you're already trying to change behaviors, work on goals where they need to be worked on.
Yeah. Isn't one of I don't know if this is an OT saying, but people learn best in their natural environment?
Sounds like something an OT
That's
would
an OT thing.
But they might also say 2 for the price of 3. So don't quote me.
But it is like, it is. Why is it like, it's like, why do we travel this far to do this? It's because children and people learn best in their natural environment. I mean, when COVID took place, we had to shift. Like it wasn't a choice. Like we had to do virtual visits. And in one way, that was such a great opportunity for us to like experience what virtual visits could be, because we had never had that as an option. So if someone would cancel, I mean, we would try use the time and ways, but we never offered virtual. That wasn't in our mindset. COVID forced us to do this. And thank God, with Mike's, or whoever, thank the situation that Mike was able to figure things out technically. Our coaches were able to adapt and figure it out, and the families were willing to participate. And my point was going to be, at the end of the day, I think we realized that, yes, this is a great option and it can be valuable, but missing that, like being in the home with the family, like it was really a good reminder too of like, it really is worth traveling out there and like being in that home and like being in that community. And and you guys, so I'd love to hear, because you guys lived that firsthand in your positions.
And you know that.
Or you
while
did, Robyn,
and while we're traveling to you, and while we're traveling away from you, we're thinking about you. Mm-hmm. We're planning for you. We're debriefing and talking about it after. We're planning for the next session. We're talking about what went well, maybe where we want to go the next time, a game we maybe want to try. So that time that we're spending together too, just like builds that service too that we're already like we're trying to provide that, but we don't have to go back and like set aside special time for it. COVID times, yeah, we were like that those little screens that we were being our kind of like entertain ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to plan. You plan your prep time. You're planning like any of your debrief time, like anything you want to do that you want to touch base with your coworkers, because there's none of this kind of like shared and collaborative space or car space that you're doing it in. It would all have to be like planned for.
Yeah, and I want to reverse it now to think that what if you're that family that's, let's say, 2 hours out in Whitecourt and your only option is to see the OT at the office in Edmonton, and like you need to plan. That is so much logistical, financial burden on that family. Do they even have a car? Is it big enough to hold everybody? Are there siblings that have to come with? Are they going to get in the way? Or do we need to arrange childcare for them? What about the gas? Do you also have a job and you need to tell your boss, like, I need to take the day off to take my child to Edmonton to do this? And I think we have had some that are like, they need to see a neurologist in Edmonton. So we'll try to also visit at headquarters at the same time. That's a great option. But you know, for some folks, maybe they cannot access this because it's so much resources on them, right? And they're usually funded through like FSCD, for example, too. So I get into this huge like mental hurricane thinking about how you would have to execute that as a parent if you had to do it in the other way around.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's even if like say a family was in Edmonton and they could come to HQ, there's just some things that you have to do them as their natural routine, the way that they would be doing them at home, to really see like, how is this going? Where are the challenges and how can we navigate around them? Because every family's circumstances are so unique. So to be in home, to see those routines happen naturally, there's just something about that you can't get virtually.
We're there for snack
or
time.
in a clinic.
We're there for the toilet breaks. We're there for
just the family dynamics, the dog coming in. Oh, now the door's open. The kid wants to leave. Like all these bits and pieces that you just can't replicate in their non-home environment.
Now pulled the hair, and now there's
there's all kinds of pieces.
Or like how as with clinicians, how much you have to like really observe, really, because like the things that you can get a family to do a diary of behaviors and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily get the true honest reporting because they're already at that point where they're needing that support and they have that caregiver fatigue. And so you miss those extra parts. And so that extra little bit that could be, 1 or 2 extra weeks down the road to getting to that point when you're dealing with services, you get to get to that point a lot quicker because you're in that effective place. It's, it's something I think is invaluable for that situation. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what you were saying, Deanna, about like how much, families who do the travel out here, because I do have a couple clients who, because they wanted to use our services, made the decision that they were going to travel here. But just thinking of all those aspects that they need to put into place on top of like some of the extreme challenges that they're having in their life, to then like travel 2 to 3 hours to get here. And so my point of saying that is like, when I think, is it worth our dollars or like funding to spend for us to travel 2 to 3 hours to get out to Lac La Biche or Cold Lake? Yes, it is, because this family or this client's life depends on it sometimes, right? And if we can make it easier for them in a way, then I think it's worth it.
Just because you are not in like the big Edmonton or Calgary it should not mean that you have this less equitable access, that you do not have as much of a like higher, I don't know, life trajectory over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think all the other places we've been to, there's been Like I had a great discharge interview with a family that were in just their acreage on the middle of a range road. And I was like, you know, like they only have dad's truck. That's it. And he's already really busy as a farmer. So if we couldn't come to their acreage, they would have nothing. Nothing at all.
Yeah, they'd have nothing at all. I
Yeah.
remember John talking, or when he started the practice, he was in his like bow tie era.
Oh, I remember those. Oh, yeah.
And I'm just thinking about John going out to these like farms and like really suited up. And I'm like, okay, but he was just like, that was his thing. And he was not going to like change.
Oh, I remember him talking
Right?
about this like from the get-go. Just like be you,
Yeah.
dress how you want,
What?
just know.
Be willing to like play the game and play hard when you're there. And if you decide to wear a bow tie and shiny black shoes, you better still be willing to get in the mud. But he would come home with like boots that the family ended up lending him. You know, he's sort of changed up his style now, and now he's sort of he likes more of that rugged. But yeah, he used to go out there in those suits and ties. And I'm just wondering, for rural practice for you guys, has there been anything that you've had to like change or adapt to that's been sort of out of your normal way of doing things?
Oh, exact opposite. You get to go back to being normal. You don't have to have an entire section of your closet that's business casual. I had blazers and so many pairs of dress pants and little shoes that would go with things. And now, Kris was saying last week, I wish we just had a whole lineup of Key Creative t-shirts that I could just throw on like my uniform.
Like I would literally
just
with like
going,
just 10 t-shirts, a few long sleeves, a few hoodies. I'd be like Key top to bottom all day, every day. That would be like
just have your
because-
work uniform.
Yeah,
It's
your work
casual,
uniform.
It's comfortable. I like to go back to jeans, t-shirts, like a comfortable fitting sweater that you know you're going to be crawling around. You're going to be giving lots of hugs. You're going to be like maybe sneezed on. You're
You
in
might be
somebody's
like
feeding
house.
the horses.
you might be hanging out with
feeding
a
the
donkey
horses.
like I was a few weeks ago, honestly. Like jumping on a trampoline, doing water play, whatever it is.
John, or like
Playing volleyball.
he would do a lot of or does like obstacle courses. So like the hay bale or like the big tractor tires that he'd be flipping.
Yeah, I think it's like
I love how you said that though. It's actually, how did you like going back to being more comfortable?
Yeah, you're going
Yeah.
back. You're just able to
a-
dress as you as
are,
yourself,
yeah.
and that's what stands out about when John was just like, you can wear whatever you want, but just be prepared that if you want to go in that like business casual, like some pizzazz, that you're going to be driving to a farm, and like that might not be that kind of like family's expected, but that if it's authentically you and you feel good in that and that's what's making you feel like you're showing up as a professional.
Yeah.
I think that I've watched a lot of like the colleagues here and just our key peeps just go to casual. Just wear what makes you feel the most comfortable. We're going to be sitting on floors. We're going to be crawling around. Like Kris was saying, it's water play. There's all kinds of things that happen at visits. But I love not having that section of the closet that's just like the things you only wear from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
I think like you show up as authentically you as possible, and then the client's like, we can also just be ourselves. We don't have to pretend we're not on a farm right now. Like this is where we are. Like, what is your life out here like? We'll just join in with that for the duration of our visit.
That really speaks to, I'm just thinking the authenticity part, like when you show up so authentically, even if you're wearing a suit and tie, but if you're authentic with that, like people feel that energy, feel that vibe. So it's like whatever you feel good in, like if it's authentic to you, like people resonate with that type of energy. But that's so cool. I love that, Robyn, how you explain that.
And the rural clients will lend you a boot.
Will lend you the boots.
Like, right, they're so like, I think because they're like, oh, you have to you're driving back 2 hours. Like, do you guys need snacks?
Yeah.
Do you need water? They're so like willing to like, lend us a boot if we need it.
Well, I am sure you guys probably see the most gorgeous, and I've seen pictures, like sunrises and sunsets that this province or area of the country gets. Like, and probably see some of the, like the animals out there too that we don't usually get to see either.
Yeah, it's all the changes of the seasons.
Yeah.
Everyone's so excited if you see a cool animal. Everyone's like texting, I saw a bear today. I saw a bear.
Yeah, we saw a black bear.
We did see a black bear recently. We were like, is that a dog? No, it's a bear. And we slowed down on this like really rural road to just like watch it walk through the field.
Yeah.
But that drive in particular is so beautiful.
Yeah.
When we go to Elk Point, it's just like rolling green, so lush. We always like remark when we're on that drive how beautiful it is. I was out in Drayton Valley on Friday, out like not in Drayton Valley, but and it's just same beautiful. Me and Wendy were just like, oh, look at these valleys.
Yeah.
Wendy said, I'm a sucker for valleys.
That is Wendy.
But it really forces, I don't know if I want to say force, but like it really gives you that chance to appreciate your surroundings and like nature and like all of that, which generally when you're rushing to work through traffic, you don't get that opportunity to have those moments a lot of times. So lots of really neat things of rural practice that
made me think of something too. When you're rushing to work. So I think it's kind of redefined commute for me. And it's a question like we get asked all the time, like, how can you do like you're driving all the time? What about those like days when it's bad weather? Well, we're using like common sense and we're not driving if the road's coded red and we're we're being safe
for that too. Maybe I should just mention like
we're not driving when the buses are shut down and like we've got those things that are kind of covered. But commute, it's a different kind of like joy than when you're just like commuting. You've clocked out of work. You're done work already and you know that you've got 45 minutes home. That's just like kind of in that rush hour traffic. I've been there and done that. And that time feels like more kind of wasted time in your day. There's something that feels more kind of like precious about the time when you're like, oh no, this is my work time. I'm here and I'm working. And so the time in your car doesn't have that kind of haggard, like heavy feeling that it does when it is just commute to office and commute home.
And you're just like, I'm just going to get there safely.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm not
I just
rushing.
need to get there safely.
I just need to get there safely at the end of the day. So
and that's more prioritized, right? Like
we watch the speed signs.
I have had 1 or 2 tickets in Fort Saskatchewan.
Fort Sask.
easy
photo radar.
But because you're not like, oh, I'm going to be late to start work. You're just like, I've started and now I just have to get there and do it safely. So we just like chill.
Yeah, it's a lot of cruise control. Just I find that then being in your car is more enjoyable. It doesn't have that feeling of being like, okay,
so frenzied or something. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
One other thing we were speaking about before we started, Kris, was just how you were able to kind of build connections and community for clients. That like sometimes a family you were working with in a community, or in a smaller area didn't know about who to access for a certain type of support. And you were able to you've become sort of a bridge for some of that. Is that something you can speak about a little bit?
Yeah, I think, doing these kinds of services in the rural areas, like I did these kinds of services in only Edmonton prior to working to Key. I found that doing it out in these smaller communities, you kind of become a liaison between the client and either Edmonton, what services are available here, and also just between the clients that you have in close communities. Because one might say to you, oh, there's finally a pediatrician that's accepting new clients. And you think like, oh, my client who's in a town 45 minutes from here can't find a pediatrician, I got to let them know, right? So you kind of become a little bit of like a networker for them. And I think that's a pretty unique role that we get to play here that maybe we wouldn't if we were just in the city where people have access. You know, the access is a little bit easier. So yeah, it's kind of a unique role we get to play.
Favorite driving story, favorite highlight, most memorable moment on the road. I'm thinking like, I'm seeing like you and Robyn, I'm seeing you and Wendy, because we encourage, you know, because Mike, myself, and Deanna aren't on the road in the same way that you two are, if at all. So we're in different positions. So we're always like, share photos. Like, we want to see what you're seeing. Like, send them our way, because it's really it's just as meaningful. I can speak for myself, to me, when I get to like have that experience, at least through the photo, because I 100% believe in what we do and what you guys are doing. Obviously, your biggest cheerleader for you guys being out there doing this incredible work. But like, I'm thinking of the photo, Robyn, of you and Wendy, for example, with like, did you had pizza, or like you had all the snacks in the car?
Oh yeah,
and
we got
that looks amazing.
I don't even remember what it's called, but it's that BP's like triple something.
Oh yeah, like triple. It comes with like Bandera bread and cactus cuts and something else.
Yeah. So we open them all up, and then like whoever's in the passenger seat is like holding all of them and like passing off all the snacks and treats.
I think the time when Robyn and I did like Lady in the Tramp with
Yes, we
with
did.
the fruit by the foot.
Yes, we did. We were gifted some fruit by the foot from a client.
by a family,
Yeah.
and so then we like
So
had
we
one
did
end
the-
each, and that was pretty funny. I
Yeah.
also
And we have done karaoke. Like, we've got a good video of some Bryan Adams.
Oh yeah,
that's
we
right.
need some of
That
that
we've
content.
there was also a time when there was 4 of us. Like that was a major carpool. All 4 of us going up to one of the schools in Lac La Biche, and same thing. Like we were just going through 90s music and singing badly. It was fun. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I think all the things that we mentioned before, of like the things that pop into mind, are those times when you have like a hour break, maybe in between seeing 2 families and stop at the thrift store, or like go and pop into like a weird convenience store and just like browse around and see what you could find. Yeah, those days are awesome, that you just like have this kind of like space to explore little
just, like,
communities.
Playing.
Just play.
You're just playing, you know. It's nice because you're just like, we don't need to fill this hour with work. We're like driving, you know, sometimes we do, but sometimes we're just like, you know what? Oh, that was a long visit, or it's whatever. It was a long drive and then a long visit. Let's just like hang out and be silly for an hour before we go into our next thing.
So we've talked about, you know, some of the different places we travel to, some of the fun moments and experiences, and things that we've seen on the road, the benefits of driving together. What does, though, so we are primarily a rural practice, which means that we are on the road a lot. However, our Edmonton-based clientele has also grown quite a bit. So what does a day-to-day or a week-to-week schedule look like in terms of travel?
Well, I think, you know, because it's rather flexible, we kind of set up our own schedules, which is nice because you can do it all in one week and then have more Edmonton clients the next week, or kind of like intersperse it. And there's always follow-up that we have to do after visits. So, you know, like for me, I try to do no more than maybe like 2 or 3 big driving days in a week, and then have like a paperwork or a day with Edmonton clients where I'm not going as far. So yeah, it just kind of depends how you set yourself up.
Yeah.
But you can get like a nice long day some days and then be like, oh, you know what? I can sleep in a bit tomorrow, unless you have to drop your kids off at school.
But
So
you
I never
still
get
don't.
that,
You
but-
still don't have to start your work day.
Yeah,
till
you don't have to. You don't have to if
10
you
or
like,
11 the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or meet up with someone at a coffee shop in the afternoon or whatever to do paperwork. So yeah, there's balance.
Definitely. It's not like your every day is going out on the road unless you've planned for that. But I think like what you initially said is that every coach or team member is able to make their own schedule. They're given a certain amount of clients that they need to see on their caseload, and then they sort of decide how they want to see them throughout the month. And so if you want to do a longer day so you can have a shorter day, some coaches will do that. Or 2 longer days so you can have a day off. Some coaches do that, but it's really ends up being up to the coach how they want to schedule that in to make their day work. And especially, with families where if you have children, that you need to work around too, it can sometimes make that easier. Maybe harder sometimes too, but just on that other end, like you can start later or come home earlier or whatever it may be on certain days. That flexibility I know has been valuable to a lot of people who have worked on our team, and to myself included. Like just having flexibility has always been something I have needed for myself, and so I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I think everyone utilizes that flexibility, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's also, it's trust in all of this as a system and in each other, that we're all really accountable to the time that we're actually working, putting towards clients, because we aren't checking into an office and we aren't actually just, John and I have talked about this before, where if you could just like punch in at the beginning of the day and you could just kind of zone out for a 5-hour day and be sitting behind your computer. But when you're on the road and you're traveling, like we're accountable. We're doing that time for that contract, for that client. And I think that knowing that you're not checking in on that, did Robyn leave her house this morning? We're just all accountable to each other.
Yeah.
It creates like a team ethic and team accountability. And there is just kind of like an absolute trust in that we are all using and managing our time in that, like, really, it is a really like ethical way. I've never once questioned anybody else's time. And we all kind of communicate with each other.
I just want to say with my whole heart, like taking this opportunity to thank you guys for doing that work, to going to these communities day in and day out. And the travel is definitely not the worst part of the job. And even though I know that, I still thank you for going out on the road to these different places and giving so much of yourselves to these people. I'm so grateful to be part of this team and each one of your journeys through our practice. It's really special what we do. To be able to tell people that our coaches are on the road going to these places, I just feel so honored that I get to be part of that with you guys. So thank you so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's great to have the space.
My audiobook count is way up. So thank you.
Awesome. Anything else we want to share? Are we ready to whoosh it out?
Yeah, I was going to say one other side, but let's whoosh it out.
Let's whoosh it out.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, fists in, everybody. 3, 2, wait, Paul. Okay,
Ready.
3, 2, 1.
Whoosh.
All right. Key Talks is a project of Key Creative. Our co-hosts are Paula Audrey Rivero and Deanna Halls. Our production team is Michael Schwake, Jessa Dupuis, and Deanna Halls. Music by John Rivero. To reach out to us or access services for you or your family, visit keycreative.com. That's QICreative.com and fill out our online intake form. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.